The lone signal. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly, dotted with dying stars and the wreckage of forgotten battles. In the heart of this silent graveyard, a lone distress signal pulsed, a faint rhythmic beacon that had no right to exist. It was weak, almost drowned out by cosmic radiation, but it was there. And it had been repeating the same pattern for hours. Admiral Corrin of the Galactic Empire's fleet leaned forward in his command chair, his sharp, reptilian eyes narrowing as he studied the holographic display in front of him. The signal was coming from a restricted sector, a place where no ship should have been for centuries. "Are we certain this isn't a malfunction?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The communications officer, a pale-skinned avian species with nervous eyes, shook his head. "No, Admiral. It is a real signal. It appears to be automated, but it's following an old military encryption." Corrin exhaled slowly, his clawed fingers tapping against the armrest of his chair. The sector where the signal originated was once the site of a massive war, one of the last battles against the humans before their kind vanished from the galaxy. It was a place no one dared to enter anymore, a haunted graveyard where only wreckage and broken dreams remained. And yet something was still alive there. "Send a scout team," Corrin ordered. "I want a full scan of the area. If it's just old wreckage sending out phantom signals, shut it down. If it's something else, I want to know immediately." Within minutes, a squad of sleek Empire scout ships detached from the fleet and accelerated toward the source of the signal. Their dark hulls shimmered against the light of distant stars as they slipped into the debris field. Enormous chunks of broken battleships drifted silently around them, remnants of a war long past. "Proceed with caution," the squad leader murmured over the comms. "Keep an eye on your scanners. There could still be active mines out here." The pilots maneuvered carefully, weaving through shattered hulls and twisted metal. The signal grew stronger, pulsing steadily like a heartbeat. Then, through the haze of drifting debris, they saw it. A ship. It was old, ancient, even, but somehow still intact. Its hull was massive, scared by battle, yet standing resilient against time. Faded insignias lined its surface, barely visible beneath centuries of dust and damage. The design was unmistakable. A human warship. For a long moment, the scout pilots stared in disbelief. The Empire had crushed the humans ages ago. Their fleets were destroyed, their worlds left in ruin. No human ship should have survived. And yet, here it was, silent, waiting. This is impossible," one of the pilots whispered. "That ship should be dust by now." The squad leader's voice was tense. "Run a scan. I want to know if it's active." The scanners whirred, sending waves of energy toward the ancient vessel. The data returned seconds later. What they saw made their blood run cold. Power. Faint, but undeniable. Deep within the ship, something was still alive. The squad leader hesitated. "Command, this is Scout Team Alpha. We have a situation." The signal. "It's coming from an operational human warship." Silence. Then, Admiral Corrin's voice came through, steady but sharp. "Confirm that last transmission." The squad leader swallowed hard. "Confirmed, sir. It's still powered. Weak, but alive." A pause. Then Corrin spoke again. "Hold position. Do not engage. We are sending reinforcements." But before the scouts could acknowledge the order, something changed. The faint lights on the human vessel flickered. The ancient warship, which had been dormant for centuries, suddenly awakened. With a low hum, its systems roared to life. The distress signal stopped, and a new message, one not meant for rescue, but for war, began to transmit. The Galactic Empire's scout team hovered cautiously near the ancient human warship, their sleek vessels trembling slightly as the ship's dormant systems surged to life. What had been a silent relic just moments ago was now active, its deep hum vibrating through the debris field. Inside the Empire's command ship, Admiral Corrin's reptilian eyes narrowed as he listened to the frantic reports from the scout team. His claws tapped against the metal armrest of his chair, his mind racing. "Repeat that," Corrin ordered, his voice calm but sharp. The scout leader's voice crackled through the comms. "Sir, the ship has powered up. Systems are online. A sudden burst of static cut the transmission. "Scout leader, respond." Corrin snapped, but there was no reply. The only sound was the distant hum of the human warship's systems, growing louder. On the scout team's screens, something horrifying unfolded. The ancient ship, once a forgotten relic, was no longer drifting aimlessly. It was moving. Slowly at first, its engines flickered with blue fire, pushing away layers of dust and shattered metal. What had seemed like just another derelict wreck now radiated an overwhelming presence. The old battle scars on its hull looked like marks of survival rather than decay. This was no ghost ship. It was waking up. One of the scouts panicked. "Sir, we should fall back. This thing." A deep metallic voice cut through the static, making every pilot freeze. "Unknown vessels, DTTCTD, identify." The words didn't come from the Empire's ships. They came from the human warship itself. For centuries, humanity was believed to be gone, defeated, erased from the galaxy. But this voice, it sounded very real, very alive. The squad leader swallowed hard and reached for his controls. "This is Scout Team Alpha of the Galactic Empire. Identify yourself." Silence. Then, a low, almost mechanical chuckle echoed through the comms. "Galactic Empire detected. Status: hostile. Response: engaging." Before the scout pilots could react, the human ship fired. A single pulse of energy erupted from its hull, striking one of the scout ships. The Empire's vessel didn't explode. It didn't even have time to. The moment the energy wave hit, the ship's shields collapsed, and the entire craft disintegrated into dust. Not wreckage, not debris, just dust. Panic erupted among the remaining scouts. "Command, we're under attack. This ship, it's hostile." Admiral Corrin jumped to his feet, his eyes wide. He had expected an old, broken vessel, something to be salvaged or studied. He never expected this. "Fall back," he barked. "Do not engage. Return to the fleet immediately." The remaining scout ships twisted and turned, their engines roaring as they tried to escape. But the human warship wasn't done. It moved fast, much faster than a ship of its size should have. Then the second attack came. A barrage of energy bolts rained down on the fleeing scouts. Another ship vanished in an instant. A third was torn apart before it could even send out a distress signal. The last scout pilot barely escaped, his ship shaking violently as he pushed his engines to the limit. He looked at his sensors one last time and felt his blood turn cold. The human warship was following him, and it was just getting started. The lone surviving scout ship burst out of the debris field, its engines burning at maximum speed as it raced back to the main fleet. The pilot's hands trembled as he activated his comms, his voice barely steady. "Command, the human warship is active. It engaged us. The others." He swallowed hard. "They're gone." Inside the Empire's massive flagship, Admiral Corrin stood frozen, his claws gripping the command chair. He had dismissed the old warship as a relic, a useless piece of history. But now, the warning lights flashing across his bridge told a different story. A deep silence filled the room. Then one of the officers whispered, "Sir, what do we do?" Corrin exhaled slowly. He had led fleets against dozens of species. None had ever stood against the Galactic Empire and lived to tell the tale. But something about this situation felt different. He turned to his crew. "Deploy the fleet. All battle cruisers form a blockade. We will remind this ship that humanity is extinct." The order was given. Within moments, dozens of colossal Empire warships moved into position, their sleek black hulls reflecting the light of the nearby star. Fighters swarmed out like angry hornets, surrounding the debris field where the human warship had been spotted. Corin watched from his command station. "We outnumber it 100-1, he muttered. "Let's see if an ancient machine can stand against the full force of the Empire." Then the sensors blared. "Admiral!" A crew member shouted. "It's moving." On the giant screen, the human warship emerged from the shadows. The dust and debris drifted away as its engines flared brighter. But it wasn't retreating. It was advancing. Corin narrowed his eyes. "Foolish." He gestured sharply. "All ships, open fire." The Empire's fleet unleashed a storm of energy weapons. Beams of plasma and railgun rounds tore through space, converging on the lone warship like an unstoppable wave of destruction. And then, the human ship vanished. For a moment, confusion filled the Empire's ranks. Had it been destroyed? Had it evaded somehow? Then alarms screamed across every battleship. "It's behind us." Corin spun to the screen, his blood running cold. The human warship had bypassed their entire blockade. It now loomed just beyond their backline, perfectly positioned to strike at their exposed fleet. "How?" Corin growled. "That's impossible." Then the human warship spoke again. "Tactical analysis complete. Empire fleet. Predictable. Response: annihilation." The warship's weapons charge. A blinding explosion ripped through space as energy beams tore through the Empire's ships like paper. One after another, battleships erupted into fireballs, their shields failing in an instant. The Empire's mighty fleet, the one that had never lost a battle, was suddenly being obliterated. Corin's heart pounded. This was no ordinary warship. This was a predator, a machine built for war, designed to win against impossible odds. "Fall back," Corin roared. "We need tow." Before he could finish, his flagship shook violently. A single shot from the human warship had pierced its outer hull. Warning sirens blared. Crew members scrambled. Panic spread like wildfire. For the first time in his career, Admiral Corin felt fear. The Galactic Empire had always believed humanity was extinct. But this ship, this nightmare from the past, was proving them wrong. And it was only getting started. Admiral Corin gripped the edges of his command chair as the flagship trembled from another direct hit. Smoke filled the bridge, alarms screamed, and crew members scrambled to stabilize the failing systems. The Empire's fleet was supposed to be invincible, yet here they were, being torn apart by a single human warship. "This is impossible," Corin growled, his mind racing for answers. No ship should be this powerful. No ship should move like that. The human warship had cut through the Empire's formation with surgical precision. It wasn't just a relic from the past. It was a predator. Every time the Empire's fleet adjusted, the human vessel countered before they even finished moving. Corin's communications officer turned to him, panic in his voice. "Sir, we've lost contact with the Farkan, Dreadlance, and Obsidian Fang." "There." He swallowed hard. "They're gone." Corin's claws dug into his armrests. "Gone. 3 dreadnoughts." The officer nodded, terror in his eyes. Corin's mind reeled. His fleet had been hundreds of ships strong just moments ago. But now, ship after ship was vanishing in fire and ruin. He clenched his fists. "How is it doing this? We should have overwhelmed it already." One of his strategists, an older officer with years of experience, looked up from the data screen. His expression was grim. "It's not just firepower, Admiral," he said. "This thing is predicting our moves before we make them. It's faster. It's smarter." He hesitated. "Sir, it's fighting like it's done this 1,000 times before." Corin's blood ran cold. The human warship had waited. It had let them make the first move, and now it was playing with them, hunting them. On the main screen, the monstrous vessel moved again, its thrusters flaring bright. It wove through the battlefield like a ghost, avoiding every attack with unnatural precision. Then, it fired. A single glowing projectile streaked through the void. Corrin barely had time to react before the blast ripped straight through another Empire dreadnought, tearing it in half. The ship didn't even get a chance to return fire. One moment, it was there. The next, it was space debris. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the crew aboard Corrin's flagship seemed to freeze. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries, their warships unmatched, their tactics flawless. But now, they were witnessing something beyond their understanding. This wasn't a war. This was a massacre. A voice crackled over the comms, one of the few remaining captains, his tone filled with terror. "Admiral Corrin, we need to retreat. This thing, it's not just a ship. It's a damn executioner." Corrin's jaw tightened. Retreat. The Galactic Empire never retreated. But what choice did he have? Before he could answer, the human warship spoke again. Tactical projection. Galactic fleet unable to withstand extended engagement. Enemy survival rate 0. Corrin's breath caught in his throat. It knew. It knew it had already won. He slammed his fist against the console. "No, I won't be defeated by a ghost from the past." He turned to his weapons officer. "Charge the dread cannon. Full power. I don't care if we overload the cores. Fire everything we have." The order was given. Across the fleet, surviving Empire warships prepared their final assault. Energy cannons surged with power, torpedoes locked on target. Every available weapon aimed at the lone human ship. This would be their last stand. And then, the human warship moved. One final time. Faster than anything Corrin had ever seen. And in that moment, the Admiral realized. He had made the greatest mistake of his life. Admiral Corrin watched as his fleet prepared for their final assault. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, and battle frigates aligned, their weapons fully charged, their targeting systems locked onto the human warship. The bridge of Corrin's flagship was filled with the hum of overloading energy cores. Every screen flashed with status reports. Shields at maximum, rail cannons primed, torpedo bays ready to fire. The dread cannon, the Empire's most powerful weapon, was charging to full power. This was it. This was everything they had left. "This ship is just one vessel," Corrin snarled, gripping the armrest of his chair. His claws dug into the material. "It cannot survive the full force of the Empire's fleet. Fire." The order was given. And the void came alive. A massive storm of plasma bolts, railgun slugs, torpedoes and beams of raw energy streaked toward the human warship, covering it from every angle. The fleet had unleashed everything, enough firepower to reduce an entire planet to dust. For a moment, Corrin felt something close to relief. Nothing could survive that. But then, the ship moved. It twisted, it spun, it vanished into the chaos like a phantom. Weapons meant to obliterate it missed by inches, flying past or crashing into each other. Some torpedoes, redirected at the last second, slammed into Empire cruisers instead, shattering them into flaming debris. Corrin's eyes widened in horror. "It's predicting our shots." Before he could react, the human warship retaliated. A single beam lanced out, slicing through the bridge of an enemy dreadnought like a knife through cloth. The mighty warship didn't even explode. It was simply cut apart, its halves drifting apart in the vacuum. Another pulse of energy erupted from the human vessel, and 3 more Empire ships were reduced to fireballs. The human ship was dancing through the destruction, turning their own assault against them, tearing apart ships one by one. This is impossible," whispered one of Corrin's officers, his voice shaking. "Sir," another crew member cried out, "the dread cannon is fully charged. What are your orders?" Corrin didn't hesitate. "Fire it now." From the heart of the Empire's flagship, the dread cannon roared to life. A single, massive beam, pure destruction, enough to vaporize a moon, shot forward, engulfing everything in its path. It streaked toward the human warship at blinding speed. Corrin watched with breathless anticipation. The beam collided. For a fraction of a second, the bridge was silent. Had they done it? Had they finally destroyed the impossible ship? The blinding light faded, and the human warship was still there, untouched. Corin's blood ran cold. The ship's energy field had absorbed the entire attack, not just resisted it, but devoured it like a predator swallowing prey. "No," he whispered. And then, the ship's comms activated. For the first time, a human voice spoke. "Your last mistake was thinking this battle was fair." The warship's weapons charged one final time, and the true slaughter began. The silence after the human's words was deafening. Admiral Corin's breath caught in his throat. His officers, once filled with confidence, now sat frozen at their stations, their eyes locked on the screens. They had fired everything. The dread cannon, the most powerful weapon in the Empire's history, had been unleashed at full force, and it had done nothing. The human warship floated untouched, surrounded by the wreckage of Empire vessels, its hull gleaming under the flickering lights of dying ships. Then it moved. A blur of impossible speed, a flash of pure energy. The ship vanished, and before Corin could even react, the first explosions erupted. The Empire's fleet began to die. A single pulse of energy lanced outward, cutting through an entire line of battlecruisers. The ships didn't just explode. They were ripped apart at the molecular level, their armor dissolving into nothingness. Corin's officers shouted over each other, their voices filled with panic. "We're losing ships. Dorsal defenses are gone, completely gone. Hull breaches across multiple dreadnoughts. Entire decks are collapsing." The human warship didn't stop. It weaved through the chaos, moving like a ghost, untouchable and merciless. Empire vessels fired wildly, but it was useless. Every shot missed. Every attack was countered before it even launched. The ship's weapons struck with inhuman precision, turning entire squadrons into fireballs within seconds. Corin gritted his teeth. His mind was screaming for a solution. This was a nightmare. A single ship should not be able to do this. "Sir," one of his officers was trembling. We have to retreat." "Retreat? The Empire does not retreat." Corin slammed his fist into the armrest. "We fight to the last ship." The moment he said it, the human ship stopped moving. For the first time in the entire battle, it stayed still, hovering in the center of the wreckage, as if studying the remaining fleet. Then, its comms activated again. The same calm, human voice echoed across every remaining Empire vessel. "Your Empire thought it was invincible. You thought no one could challenge you. Now you will witness the price of arrogance." A deep hum resonated from the warship. Its core glowed brighter, far brighter than before. The remaining Empire fleet detected a massive energy spike, one unlike anything their sensors had ever recorded. And then it unleashed its true weapon. A wave of pure destruction rippled outward from the warship, an invisible force that ignored shields, bypassed armor, and simply erased anything it touched. Empire warships began to disintegrate. Not explode, not burn, just vanish. Dreadnoughts that had ruled the stars for centuries turned to dust in an instant. Battlecruisers, gunships, every last fighter craft, erased from existence in the blink of an eye. Admiral Corin's heart pounded. His mind refused to believe what he was seeing. This wasn't a battle anymore. This was annihilation. "This isn't war," Corin whispered in horror. "It's judgment." His flagship, the last surviving vessel, was the only ship left in the sector. The human warship turned to face it, a predator locking eyes with its final prey. Corin swallowed hard. He had one choice left: fight or surrender. The final moment was here, and humanity was about to decide his fate. Admiral Corin's hands trembled as he gripped the armrests of his command chair. The battlefield, if it could still be called that, was unrecognizable. Where once an armada of Empire warships had stood, there was now only emptiness. No debris, No drifting wreckage, just silence. The human warship, that impossible vessel, hovered alone in the void, its dark hull gleaming with cold precision. And now it had turned to face him. Corin's flagship, the last warship of the Empire. Every officer on his bridge sat in stunned silence, their faces pale, hollow, broken. None of them had ever considered this possibility. No one had. A single human ship had destroyed an entire Imperial fleet, without suffering a single scratch, without taking a single loss. It was impossible. Yet, here it was. The comms flickered. The human was calling. Corin hesitated. Then, with slow, reluctant movements, he answered. The voice came through, as calm and unshaken as before. Admiral Corin of the Corthan Empire. Corin swallowed. He didn't know what to say. His empire had never surrendered before. The idea was unthinkable. Yet, what choice did he have? His fleet was gone. His weapons were useless. His enemy was beyond anything he had ever imagined. And now he was alone. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to regain some sense of authority. Human vessel. He struggled to keep his voice steady. You have won this battle. But the human cut him off. This was never a battle. Corin froze. This was a lesson. The word struck harder than any weapon. Corin clenched his fists, rage bubbling under the surface. A lesson. They had been obliterated, humiliated, wiped from existence in mere moments. And this human dared to call it a lesson. Before he could respond, the human continued. For centuries, your empire has conquered without mercy. You crushed weaker species. You enslaved entire worlds. You believed yourselves unstoppable. There was no anger in the voice, no hatred, just cold, undeniable truth. Corin's jaw tightened. That is the way of the galaxy. The strong rule, the weak serve. A moment of silence. Then the human spoke again. Then tell me, Admiral, what happens when the strong meet something stronger? The air in the bridge grew heavy. Corin could feel his officers watching him, waiting for his response. He had no answer. He could lie. He could pretend that the Empire would strike back, that reinforcements were on their way, that this was not truly the end. But he would be lying to himself. The Empire's fleets were scattered across the galaxy. Their greatest warships had been sent here to crush what they believed was a minor human resistance. And now, they were all gone. One ship, one single human ship had undone centuries of Imperial domination. Corin's heart pounded. He had spent his life serving the Empire, believing in its strength, its absolute rule over the stars. But now, for the first time, he felt doubt. The Empire was not the apex of the galaxy. Humanity was. The human's voice came again, final and unshakable. Leave. Corin stiffened. Return to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that they are not the rulers of this galaxy. Tell them that humanity has returned. The screen went dark. The human warship drifted back, its energy levels falling into a silent, watchful state. It was giving him a choice. Retreat or die. Corin let out a slow breath. He turned to his bridge crew. His officers still looked to him for orders, though their faces were pale with fear. Turn us around, Corin said at last, his voice hollow. Take us home. His second-in-command hesitated. Sir, if we return after this. I know, Corin said, cutting him off. He knew exactly what awaited them. The Empire would not forgive failure. But this was not failure. This was survival. As the engines roared to life, as the ship slowly began its retreat, Corin allowed himself one last glance at the human vessel. It did not chase them. It did not fire again. It simply watched, like a predator, waiting for the next move. Corin turned away. He had learned his lesson. And soon, the entire Empire would learn it too. Because today, the galaxy had changed forever. and humanity was now its greatest power.